these are groups. Like you can see, this is the base unit is the category. This is the subcategory of items. All the divisions that you have, this is subcategory, and you can see this is a group. And inside all these groups, you can see multiple SKUs. So these SKUs, you can see here that you can actually clone the SKU and then it will become owned by you. And in that copied SKU, which is now owned by you, you can see this is written as a uh, copy of a cabinet, right? So in this particular cabinet, you can make changes. So let's understand that if I go into, like you can see here, when I go into edit SKU properties, I have more options here, and all these become editable for me now. Like I can basically make any changes on this if I want, right? So this is the difference between owned and non-owned. And suppose if you go into SKU structure of it, then what happens is that you will get access to another portal, which we in Infurnia terms call it as a seller portal, wherein it is very, very similar to the design portal as such, just that in the design, you are designing a complete home, right? You're designing a complete room. But in the seller portal that you use when you go into SKU structure, only that one cabinet will be shown. And in that one cabinet alone, you can make changes and you can store it. Like you can save it here. If whatever changes you make, you can save it, and that will become a stored SKU for you, a stored cabinet. Like it'll be part of your catalog, and you can keep adding it again and again. So it's a very similar portal, and then a lot of people ask us as to how can they make cabinets from scratch and all that. You cannot make panel by panel cabinets from scratch, but you can copy a cabinet and then make whatever modifications you want on this. So what we will try to understand today is this, basically of taking a cabinet and making whatever change I want in this particular cabinet itself. So we will take the example of, see that in the design panel, in the design portal that I have opened here, here everyone understands how to make these changes here, right? People make basic changes like width, you can change width to 600, then you can change height and depth also. Then you can change the finishes here. You can change the external finish that you want of the carcass, let's say. Or if you can see now that the external finish will get changed. You can see this. So all these material finishes, etc. Everyone is well aware of the changes that you can make in these basic things. But there are a lot of things that we would like to discuss. So let's take the example here, firstly, of let's go into the details of your cabinet. So here you can see when you select a particular, please remember whatever we are telling you in the design portal, the same is applicable for your seller portal also. If I select the seller portal, same view will come here to make modifications. So I'm just taking the example of the design here. Okay. So what happens is, suppose if I select this particular cabinet, if I select on the cabinet, then only one tab comes. But if I select on any particular thing like a shutter, or I select on a panel, then accordingly there'll be other tabs also that will come here. So let's say I'm selecting this shutter here. You can see that there are multiple tabs that will come. One tab is your partition. Now, partition is basically whatever is inside this cabinet. You need to first understand what are these different tabs before you start using the tools inside this. Cabinet is basically the entire cabinet, the construction of the cabinet, the finish of the cabinet, everything you can see. You can see the options here, like dimension of the cabinet, what materials are used, the countertops, basically tools or materials and items which are common to the entire cabinet will be shown in this particular thing. Like you can see in construction also regarding the carcass, which is which panel will be visible, which panel will not be visible, skirting, all these are common to the entire cabinet. So that all those tools come in cabinet. Only when you understand what these tabs are you going to be able to use Infurnia very instinctively. Like you would know, a lot of people have a query about where do I find this tool, where do I find that tool. While we have the search option here anyway, and you can search anything, but it is also important for you to understand as to what cabinets or what all how to find a particular tool. What is the logic behind where everything is placed, right? So we discussed cabinet is something around that. Then you can understand what is partition. A partition is the inside of the cabinet, inside the internals. If you want to add a shelf, if you want to add a drawer, you can see here. If you want to add shelf, drawer, if you want to add any accessories inside it, if there are any like the back panel, if you want to hide it, things like that, shelf reveal. We'll go into details of this. But partition is basically anything that is happening inside this particular storage. Excuse me. And suppose if you look at it, currently there is no shelf inside. But if I add any shelf, like inside this partition, let's say if I add a shelf, right? Then what happens is that there are two partitions that are getting created. So you might see parent partition and partition there. So that is another discussion that we will get into when we are going into the details of it. Now, once we have discussed this, now you can see shutter system. Now, in a particular cabinet, it is not necessary that you have one shutter only. You might have multiple shutters. You might have three drawer units, or you might have multiple shutters itself in one. You might have a tall unit. You might have to double shutter unit. Like this might actually be 900 also, and you might have like in the shutter system. If you look at it, the shutter system here, let's say it's a double swing. So that means there are two shutters here, right? So in that case, things like if you want to control both the shutters together, then you can go into shutter system. Things that are pertaining to both the shutters together, all the shutters in a particular cabinet, or if you want to modify some things which are in both the shutters, then you will go into shutter system. But if you want to make shutters, you want to make any changes specifically to a single shutter of that unit, then you have to go to shutter. So you can see, for example, if I go into shutter system, I have two, like let's take the example of handle. You have handle in shutter system also, you have handle in shutter also. If I change it in shutter, let's say I change it in shutter here, I took this. You can see both the handles are changed here. Can you see that both the handles are changed? But if I go into shutter and then I go into handle and here I change it, let's say I'm changing it to this. Then you can see only one, this shutter which I selected gets changed. So to specifically make modifications on a single, on a particular shutter, you have to go into shutter. And if you want to make it the entire, all the shutters that are part of it, then you have to make them the shutter system. Finally, the last option is your panel. Whenever you click on something, right, it will be a panel. Whether you click on the shutter, if you click on the shutter, then all the shutter other options also will come. But if you click on any panel, you can see that a panel tab comes, and anything that you want to do with only that particular panel, like things like if you want to make changes to material of that particular panel only, you want to mark something as a different finish, or you want to mark something, you want to add a strip light on that or anything, right? Something which is pertaining to only that particular panel, you will go into the panel tab here. So now we have understood what is the difference between all the tabs that come here. So let's not get confused. It is something very simple and it's very logical for you to understand also. So you can work accordingly. Now this is the all the tabs that come here, right? Now second thing is you have these options also where you'll see different tools coming in each. The first one is okay. The second one is your customize option. This is called customize. So if you hover over this, or if you hover over this, it will show customize. Customize meaning materials, anything like countertop position, etc., layers, all this come in your customized, all the tools come in customized. And this is your construction, like the construction of the carcass, meaning what will be, if you look at the carcass, maybe if it is half top rail, orientation, things pertaining to construction of that particular cabinet or that shutter, that comes in construction. And the most commonly used tools that people use on a regular basis, we put it in the quick access. The quick access does not have new tools. It has the most used options of these two tabs. Whatever is the most used will come in quick access. Understood? So we are clear about this right now. Now let's understand. So we will not go into the quick access options here. We will only go into your customize and construction option, right? So what we will do is that the first thing in cabinet, you can see here that it is dimensions, which I'm not going to go inside too much because we all, anyone who has done the basic training will understand dimensions. Materials, in materials I would like to highlight that there is a carcass, all the changes that you want to do in the carcass of your cabinet, in the inside of the carcass, internal finish, external finish, everything that you want to do, you can definitely do that here. And secondly is your shutter here. All the changes you want to make in the shutter similarly will come here. You have core material, everything. Then you have, last thing is your skirting. If you have a wooden skirting, that will show separately, and if it's a PVC skirting, it will show separately, but you can make changes into skirting here. The one thing that I wanted to discuss in materials, while the rest of the things are something that anyone will be able to understand, the one thing that people find difficult to understand is your visible edge band and your invisible edge band, right? So you have an option here of visible and invisible edge band. So what you can see here is that, um, just give me one second. Hi, sorry. So, what we need to understand here in the next option is the visible and the invisible edge band. So, what is visible and invisible edge band? Now, edge bands are typically something that is used to cover the edges of your panels here, right? So you can see here that as per the construction, let's take the example of the bottom panel. As per the construction that we have considered here, you can see that in this panel, this edge band is visible to the naked eye. Like a person can see this edge band. So you might want this edge band to match correctly with the finish, or to be of a higher grade, or to be more aesthetically pleasing, right? So this is a visible edge band. But if you look at it, this side of your bottom panel, it's going to get covered by the left panel here. So it's an invisible edge band. So a lot of people might not want to put a edge band there itself. They don't want that edge band to be installed itself, maybe to save cost, or they, because it does not it's not technically required also. So for whatever reasons, this is the invisible edge band. You can see this panel covers it, right? So it is an invisible edge band there. So this is the difference between the visible and invisible edge band. So you can see that by default, this edge band you can specify, like when you select the particular carcass here, you can specify what is your visible edge band. You can apply a visible edge band here, and in the invisible edge band, you can apply something else if you want, or you can choose not to have an edge band itself. So this is the difference between visible and invisible edge band. Now, similarly, for shutter also you have the same option. While typically in a shutter, all the edge bands are visible, but in some cases we have still kept it open where it might be invisible, and you can mark it as invisible and move forward with it, right? So this is about your materials. Now, once you have discussed about materials, let's understand about your countertop, because countertop is something which is used very commonly and people want to modify a lot of things in that. So if you look at the countertop, the first thing that you have is the show visibility option. Like you can turn it off or you can turn it on, right? So that is the first thing that you can do. And secondly, again, when you open the drop down here, first thing is in the drop down is the materials. Like you can change the material as per you want. You can fetch from store and select any material that you want. We have a lot of materials available, and you can select whatever you want. The next thing is your edge operation. Edge operation meaning that if there are four edges in your particular cabinet, you can see in this cabinet on the countertop, there are four edges that I have. And all the four edges are marked here right now. So you can see front left. So you can see front left is this edge, right? Similarly, front right is this edge, back left is this edge, and back right is this edge. So all the four edges that you have, you can actually you can actually make changes on it by changing it, whether you want a fillet or a chamfer. So you can see a fillet is basically a curved edge, and a chamfer is a sharp cut here. Like you can see a chamfer here. So you can uh, operate on the edge accordingly. And if you want to make it higher, then you can change the radius of that edge also. So you can move ahead with that. You can make the edges anything that you want, like how you have, if you have like end in the end, whatever cabinets that you have, if you want to chamfer or if, for breakfast counters or anything of an extension of a countertop, if you want to do something like that, then you can do that. So this is next option was the edge operation. You also have the option of changing the thickness of the countertop that you have. Typically, this comes from the SKU of your cabinet. The SKU meaning that these particular countertops that you are using in finishes, you can see that the countertop here is an option, right? In your admin. Here, all the countertops have an option here. So when you go into the SKU properties of this, you can see that there is a product dimension here. This particular granite that we have is 40 in thickness by default. So you can, so by default from the SKU properties is taken as 40 You can see inherited from SKU. So it is taken as 40 But if you want to change it only for this design, and you can select self, this will become editable and you can make whatever changes you want. Let's say I want 60 So it will become 60 As you can see, it increases in the thickness of it. Next is your add accessories. If you want to add anything like a hob or kitchen appliances, etc., you simply have to select on the accessory. You have to select which accessory you want to add and you get added accordingly. You can also change the dimension of this accessory by selecting the accessory. You can go into furniture and light unit, and here you can make any modification in the dimension also if you want. You can again go back and when this is the process of a design, right? So if you want to change something, then it will still be in the minimized form here, and you can simply click on it again and it will get changed accordingly. And you just have to remove the previously added unit. So you can see this is how you add hob. A lot of people ask us about this. So please make sure you record this. Then these are accessories. There are a lot of other options also that you can add. And you also have in accessories, under accessories, we have one more option, which is sink, and the other, which is countertop ply. If you want to add any sink, it's the same thing. Add sink. You can add any sink from here and the sink will get added. Similarly, if you add countertop ply, then what will happen is inside, in between this, a countertop ply will get added. So you can see a ply gets added here, and you can actually select this particular, click on this particular panel, and you can go into panel dimension and make any changes that you want in the countertop ply also. So this is about countertop ply here. Then let's understand in countertop what other options we have. You can again remove the countertop ply if you don't need it. Extension option. Very commonly asked question about how to create breakfast counters, etc. So in the right, here you have in the countertop, you have extension option. On the right, let's say you are extending it by 500, then you can extend it by 500. You can see an extension is created here, right? It's very simple. You just have the option of back, right, left, everything. You can see that by default, the front has an extension of 40 If you want to change it, you can do the same. You also have the option of countertop drop. See, on this side, if I'm creating an extension, I want to have a drop here also, then I can do it. On the right hand side, I can click on the drop here. I can click on the drop down next to it, and I can define the height as well. If I want the height to be, let's say, 800 then I can simply click on 800 and the drop accordingly is created. So working with the changes in the countertop is very simple. You have countertop option here, and you simply need to make all the changes accordingly in the countertop here, right? Then next is your position and rotation. This is similar to everything that we usually like position rotation, even for other cabinets and everything. It's the elevation that is mostly used. So where whatever you define as the wide dimension here will be considered as the elevation. So for wall units and all, if you're putting 1472, then it will get fixed at that particular height accordingly. So position and rotation is very basic. I'm sure people will be able to understand this here. So then in cabinet, what we want to discuss further is that there is a particular segment which is rules that you can apply. Meaning that this is not something that is more commonly used in the design sector, but when you go to the seller portal, Sometimes when we are creating different types of cabinets, there might be a requirement where you might want to constrain the use of that particular cabinet to certain sizes. Like let's say for a single shutter unit, like if this is a single shutter unit, uh, let's make this as a 600 mm, and let's make the shutter system here as a single swing here, right? Then let's say you want to specify that this particular cabinet cannot be beyond 600. Like even if somebody adds it, then also it should not, you want to constrain it because you're putting a single shutter here, you want to constrain it at 600. So it's called a sizing rule, that you give a range and this cabinet can be changed in that range only. So if you select the cabinet here, in customize, you have an option of rules. Here you can put sizing rules. You can define the minimum and maximum depth possible in this particular cabinet. And when you set such a rule, then in the design side of it, this dimension here, width, right? Like you have the option of setting width, height, and depth, everything. So here when that particular cabinet is used, if you've added a rule there, then you will be able to make changes only in that range. So it is something very useful when you develop catalogs of organizations, etc. So it is something that you can also try out if you have such rules to be applied. Then the next thing that comes are very important in cabinet about in the construction tab. Construction tab, the one thing that is there is skirting option. A lot of people want to understand firstly as to if by default Infurnia skirtings we usually provide in non-wooden. Non-wooden meaning that it can be PVC skirting, whatever you want to be used. So if you're using non-wooden, then in your materials here, you can see that you can click to change and you can change the SKU of the selection. Like if you want to use black, you can select black and it will be added. So you can see that because this is a product, if you are using, you cannot change the height of this or anything, because if you are changing the height, that means the product itself is different, right? It's not something that you can cut its side and use. It is a product which will be when you're procuring it, when you're buying it, the product itself is different. So in that's why the SKU that you're selecting itself is different. We don't allow that you change the height in the selection itself. So if you want to use 150, you have more options. If you select 150, let's say I select 150, then the cabinet will change accordingly. It will be 150. So the height and material becomes a property of the product that you are using here, if it is a non-wooden skirting. But if you are using a wooden skirting, let's say you're using a wooden skirting here, then immediately you have a lot of options of this. And you can change the skirting according to your requirement, because now this is a cabinetry, right? This is a carpentry, or this is a manufacturing that you're going to do. It's a woodwork that you're doing basically. So even we immediately give you the option here of making it any sizes that you want. But in non-wooden, it has to be SKU based because it is dependent on availability and what is part of your catalog, etc. But this one, when you're selecting wooden, you can make any changes that you want. You can change materials also. You can choose the material to match with your carcass or match with your shutter, or you can have something which is you want to specify yourself itself. You want to specify it like how you customize any shutter itself. You can do that. You can also have like skirting alignment, whether you align the skirting with the shutter or the carcass. So in this way, wooden has a lot more options according to the same. This is about wooden and non-wooden. Another thing is skirting visibility. A lot of people ask us, how do I add skirting on the right hand side, left hand side? So in under skirting option itself, you have visibility. By default, front is always on, because that is a requirement that everyone has. Front is always on for us. You can also turn it off if not required. But you also have left, back, and right here. Left, back, and right? So let's say I want on the right hand side, I click on the toggle here. You can see that the right hand side skirting gets added here. So skirting means two things that you have: wooden, non-wooden, about the type of skirting that you're using. Second most important thing is your skirting visibility, right? So these are mostly the two things that are something that people need in skirting. Another important thing in construction is your carcass. Just like skirting visibility, you can turn on and off. Even for the carcass, the panels that compose your carcass, you can turn on off. You can see all the panels are turned on here. Now, if I want to turn off the right hand side, you can see this panel gets is now not part of your cabinet construction. So you can actually turn off certain panels if you do not want it. And these panels would also not come in any of your outputs, like your manufacturing outputs like catalyst, etc. It will not come there. Even in your if you're doing a raw material pricing or a constituent based pricing, then also it will not come. So this basically does not exist in your design now. So you can turn on and off the carcass visibilities accordingly. The second thing that you want to understand in your carcass construction is rails. Like, what is rails now? Let's say, first of all, let's turn off the countertop. So can you see above, these are the two panels. So instead of a complete panel, a lot of people have a construction style where they put rails on top, maybe to install sinks or hobs, inbuilt hobs, or simply because it is something, because they might have a countertop line running already and they don't need to invest in an entire panel here. So if you want something like that, that becomes part of your construction carcass, where you can select if you want the top, back, left, bottom, right, which panel. You have to basically specify which panel, and then you can select half top rails or full. If you select full, it will be a complete panel. If it's like half top, it will be two panels, and you can also change the orientation of it. If you want different type of orientation, you can do that. And you can also change the depth of it, like what is the size of this particular rails that you have. So you can customize all this. So this is the second most important thing in construction, which is carcass. And the last thing is your end panel. Like if you want to add an extra panel here, or if it is the last cabinet, you want to have this finished, you want to add an extra panel itself here, then you can use the end panel option here. You simply have to click on which side you want, right end panel, left end panel. You can see that an end panel gets added. You can also, and remember, end panels always take the finish of the shutter that we have. The shutter finish, it takes the finish of that. And you can, of course, by default, it takes the shutter. You can, of course, select the panel. You're going to the panel and change the materials if you want. But by default, it takes the shutter finish here. You can also, in end panel, you can also specify the depth. See, if you look at it, the depth here right now is still your carcass end. If you want till your shutter end, you can simply select the option. Customization is possible accordingly, right? So this is about your cabinet construction. All about your cabinet construction, the most important things, we have discussed it. I implore you to go and check out all of these, and there might be more tools that are available, and you should be able to use them as well. Try it out. You'll understand how things work accordingly. Now, the second thing is, first of all, let's go and turn on your countertop again. And the second thing is, if you look at it, the second thing here is your partition that we were talking about. If you remember, the second tab here was partition. So if I select partition, partition is a very simple thing that you need to understand. So if I want to add a partition, meaning if I want to add a vertical panel, I have to add a number here. So it's 1. And if I want, and as soon as you add a panel or a shelf or anything, right, this becomes two partitions. You can see this is one partition. So you can see when I select partition, this gets highlighted. So this is now the partition, and the complete thing is the parent partition. So this is the difference between the two. So if you want to do things in this partition, if you want to add shelves inside this partition, like say I'm adding 2 shelves, you can see that inside this partition is getting added. But if you go into parent partition, you want to add more partitions there or something, then you can go into the parent partition tab and also make changes there, right? So this is how your partition and parent partition works. And this is about your partition also. Like, let's go back to our discussion here. Like, you can see, so you can see here that this is the partition tab. In the partition tab, we also have an option of partition dimensions. Like, let's say I'm adding a shelf here, right, inside the shelf, and I want to control where the shelf is. So basically, what is the height of both the partitions here? I want to control that specifically, because when I add a shelf here, the what happens is the area that is available, it is equidistantly divided, and a shelf is added in the middle. But maybe I want the bottom partition to be higher in size. I can simply click on the partition. I can go into partition tab here. I have partition dimensions. So now you can see that it is auto calculated here. But if I switch to fixed height, if I switch to fixed height, then this becomes editable. Let's say I want to have it at 450 height. So you can see that this partition height gets specified accordingly. This is more useful when you're doing tall cabinets, when you're doing, let's say, wardrobe sectioning, etc. So you can define and control the partitions also here. Now, the last thing in partition that we would like to discuss is your shelf reveal. If you see, this particular shelf is inside the carcass slightly, so that when the shutter closes, it does not bang on that shelf, right? I mean, that is a industry standard anyway. So what happens is, in this partition, you have an option of shelf reveal. So it is 20 mm. So this is 20 mm. This is shelf reveal. How much inside? So if you want to modify that, your construction standards are different, then you can do that as well. So this is your shelf reveal about partition. So explore more things about partitions here as well. We will now move to shutter and shutter system. Now, if you remember, we had discussed that shutter and shutter systems might have a lot of common tools that you might need to use, because basically, if it is something that can be applicable to both all the shutters, then it is in shutter system. If it is something specific to a shutter, then we come in shutter. So you can see, let's say, shutter system here. There are very simple options here. First of all, like if you want to change the handle, if you want to change the orientation of the handle. See, always remember, this is the section, and this area, like you can see, the UI is different, right? So all this area is about handles only. Orientation, if you want the placement to change, all this you can do in the handle itself. Then comes a shutter mechanism, how it is opening. Like, is it a single lift up? Do you want a rolling shutter, a flap down shutter? How do you want it? You can do that. Like, if you have a wall unit, maybe, let's say if you have a wall unit, like let's furnish a wall unit. See, all these are ways how you can create new types of cabinets itself for you. If there is a new launch in Headache probably, and they have a different type of combination, a different type of size or different size something, then you can basically that particular type of mechanism might be added in our inside this mechanism option. It might get added accordingly. Like basically, let's close the handle here. Basically, let's say I'm taking double lift up. Then what happens is becomes a double lift up like this. So the mechanism and the visuals of it get changed accordingly. Uh, Everyone, please make sure that you are on mute. And when we have the discussion ongoing, everybody should be on mute. And when we have the question and answer sessions, I will take it accordingly. You can unmute yourself then and ask your questions when we ask you. So you can see in shutter system, we have more options here of lift up, double lift ups and all that, right? So here, that is one option. The next thing is your shutter design. So if you have different types of designs that you want to have, like let's say you want to have like a profile design or something like that, right? So what happens is you have shutter design option. First is profile, second is normal. Let's understand normal first. Normal meaning that if I go into change design, all the things that are part of your catalog that you have created or you have added here, like if you in Infurnia, we have fluted shutters, we have rolling shutters, we have decor shutters, we have wooden shutters. May a lot of shutter designs that we have, like let's say I'm taking shutter 6 here. So whatever shutters you're using, see, things like this, when you're doing it in the shutter system, all the shutters will get changed. But if you do it inside shutter, then only that particular selected shutter will get changed. You can see the selection also, that the blue box, sorry, the yellow box comes on both of them. So you can see like shutter design is basically this. But there's another option which is like sometimes people might need to have divisional shutters, meaning that you might want to create divisions inside your shutter and maybe put different finishes on it. So let's say I will take, let's say I will simply take this particular cabinet only. I will go into shutter design. I'll just change the shutter to a normal wooden shutter, plain shutter here. And for some time, I will just remove the hob and everything here. Extension options, I'll just make it 0 so that we can have a more definitive discussion on this. So I'll remove this. I will also be turning off the countertop and making the carcass as a full. So now let's make this cabinet at a height of 1960. Okay, so this becomes a tall cabinet. Now let's do this, that I take this particular shutter and I go into shutter system, and herein I create divisional shutters. So what you can do is you can divide the shutter into horizontal or vertical divisions. Let's say I'm selecting horizontal division. So you can see now that the shutter has become, there are two panels that are there. Like if I want more, I can just add one more. And then what happens is the shutter gets divided again. Remember, these are equidistantly divided right now. You can modify it if you want. If you want the in between one to be different, you can definitely do that as well. I'll tell you how. So you can see now that each of these three become different panels for you, not split. Please understand, splitting a shutter is different from having a divisional shutter. Here the finish changes. Basically the shutter still opens as a single shutter, right? That is how it is. So divisional shutter. So now you can select each of them, go into panel. Let's say the middle one, I want to go into panel here, and the dimension of it, like you can see the material source here. I don't want it to be the material source. I want to define whatever I want here. So I can select self, and in the external finish, I can probably select whatever finish I want. Let's say I want to select I'll take any finish here, white. So you can see now this becomes a white finish here. So you can see now that this becomes a white finish here, right? And you can also control the size of this, like all of them you can control. Basically you can go into panel, and you can basically, when you have this particular panel here, you can create extension parameters of this particular panel, wherein you have, like when you select this panel, in construction of that panel you will have divisional shutter height. You can see that when it's auto calculated, this is the height that is there. So if I want to make any change to it, let's say I want it to be 800 mm, then I can simply define the divisional height and it will change accordingly. So in this way you can create divisional shutters. Like even for this panel, just going through the process again, you can say you created the divisions, you can go into the panel option here, you can go into materials, you can select whatever self material you want, go into external finish and select whichever finish suits your design. And if you want to change the size of it also, you can go into construction of that, and under extension parameter you have divisional shutter height, and you can change it however you want. You can see that now these are same. You can actually create, if you have mirrors or anything, you can do that as well. Another interesting thing is, if you want profiles in between them, in between them, if you want to add profiles, then you can also add profiles there. Like if you look at a shutter system, right, in divisional um, like you can see in construction of this, in shutter system you have shutter profile. When you look at shutter profile, you have one which is divisional profile. Now there are two other things also, which is handle. Like if you want to add a handle as a profile, you can do that as well. But if you want to have the divisional profile here, for the sake of discussion here, you can simply select whatever divisional profile that you want. You can see there'll be wardrobe profiles here, so you can select whichever profile suits your requirement, and these profiles will get added in between. Similarly, if you select for the handle and non-handle part, like let's say in shutter system, I'm going here again in profile, shutter profiles, you can see non-handle. Non-handle meaning these areas, because this is the handle side, right? So the handle side, usually the profile is different because it has to be used as a handle also. So you can define that, you can select non-handle and handle profile accordingly. So this is how you take a divisional shutters, you create divisional shutters, but that is different from having split shutters. Like having split shutters, if you look at shutter system here, we have completed divisional shutters here. Of course, there are mirrors and all that you can add, which you can try out on your own also. Um, you also have one more thing that I need to discuss here, which is split. If you want to split the shutter itself, let's say I'm just copying this particular cabinet here and this shutter system. I'm removing the shutter here and then I'm just adding in the parent partition, I'm adding a shutter system. So you can see now the shutter gets added, right? But if I want to split the shutter, then I can simply go into construction here and I can split it. If I split it, you can see that the shutter opens uh, individually. And you have to understand by what logic this was split. It was split by the logic of what are the internal partitions that you have. If I add, like let's say I don't split it now. If I add inside this, inside this, if I add three shelves more, then and then I select this shutter and then I split it here. If I split it here, then you can um I'm sorry, I added it inside the individual partition. I did not add it here. I'll just show you the difference also. If I added it basically inside a child partition, not the parent partition. The shutter is split on the divisions that are created in the parent partition. Like if I select this, you can see this is the partition. In the parent partition, if I add shelves, like if I add shelves in the parent partition here, so, and now if I go into shutter system and I split it, then you can see that the split happens as per the partitions that are inside. Now, if you don't want it to be split like that, you just wanted like two shutters maybe. That's not a problem. You can simply go into shutter system and construction. You have merge option also. So you simply have to select the two shutters that you want to merge. So basically, if I select this shutter and I go into shutter system construction and I select merge, then I have to simply click on the next shutter I want to merge it with. This will get merged accordingly. So now you can see this opens as a singular shutter. So this is the second thing about shutter system, which is in construction, which is important. Of course, you have toggle opening detection, meaning you can change the direction of where the shutter opens from. So that is a very simple option, which I'm sure most of you have explored already. So shutter system offers all these different types of construction options to us also. And the last one in this is your reduction. So typically in a shutter, in the construction of a shutter, there might be a reduction that in your construction that you take such that your shutter opens smoothly. So you can define that on all sides as per construction. If you want 1 mm, 2 mm, a shutter reduction to be done, then in construction you can do that also. All these are important to be part of the catalog construction. So in the seller portal, you can, if you define it, then every time it is used in your design, then 1 mm shutter reduction will come accordingly. And the last, of course, is your panel, and it will have all the options of your that you have that you can change in a particular panel itself, and you can explore it accordingly. So this in totality is something that how you can customize a particular cabinet. Now, I just want to quickly show you one use case of how this happens. Like let's say I started out with this particular cabinet, right? The very basic first cabinet that I have, and I am going to customize into a tall appliance unit. And you can understand all the things that I showed you today, how it is getting used accordingly. So what I did was, and please try to understand how I am planning it also, so that you have, so that you can do it accordingly. So I have this shutter. So if it's a tall unit, the countertop will not be required. So I'll turn off the countertop. If I turn off the countertop, then I can see now that the top is a rail. We learned how to do it. We can go into construction. In carcass, we have a rail option. I need to make it full. So it becomes full now. Now the second thing is that I need to increase the height of this. If I increase the height, I can simply go into 1960 here as the height. Now the height is done. Then what I do is that I don't need this single shutter here. I have to create divisions and then create shutters. So I'll do in the shutter system. And here in customize, I have the remove shutter option. I remove the shutter. Now inside this, in the partition, I have to create divisions. Like I'll go into partition here. Like how many shelves would I want? I have decided I need like four shelves probably. I will see how it goes, right? Then four shelves are created. Now you can see that in between one that I have, I need to put a oven in that. Now what will I do? I'll go into the partition here. I will go into partition dimension. I'll switch this to fixed height and I will change it into 600, let's say, right? So because that was the height required for the oven maybe. So that you can do. Then you can go here in the customize, you have built-in appliances. So I'll add a built-in appliance here. I can see that I have built-in ovens here. I'll select whichever built-in oven I want, it will get added inside. Now the next one, I want to add a oven. Same process, very same process, partition, partition, and you switch it to fixed height. You might have a requirement of 960, 360, let's say. Okay, I took then 360 if I take, then again I'll go into customize. I'm sorry, in partition, I'll go into customize. I'll add a built-in unit. I have microwave ovens here. I will add it. Now you see, it is required. It is to be 300 above. Error is showing that the appliance that I was trying to use needs to be 380. Understand when errors come here, right? Read the error and understand what is the problem. So it needed a height of 380 mm. I had done how much? I had done 360. So if I go into partition here, you can see it's 360. So what I'll do, I'll make it 380 because that was the minimum requirement. Then if I go inside this and go into partition and here I'll add appliances. See, it gets added now because now the size requirement is fulfilled. Now, secondly, what you might need to do, you have to add drawers here. So what I'll do, I'll simply select this particular partition. I'll go into partition. In here, I will add a drawer. I've added a drawer. Drawer gets added. You can see drawer is now added. Now, in the bottom one also, let's say I want to add a drawer only. So what I'll do, I'll add a drawer. But then your client had a requirement that this particular drawer, they wanted to be a wicker basket. So what will I do? I'll select the drawer here. I'll go into the drawer tab here, like just like how shutter comes, right? Similar concept of drawer system and drawer, right? Then you will go into drawer here in accessory type. I'll just select a basket and you can see that the baskets here, I have wicker basket here. I'll select wicker basket gets added. But then you have to understand that in the wicker basket, you don't need to see the shutter here. Now, what will you do? You will go into, you will select the shutter here. You'll go into drawer system here and you will basically go into, just 1 second, sorry. So you can see here, you will go into the drawer itself and here, just when you added the accessory, here you have drawer fascia design. You can simply turn off the drawer fascia. You can see that the shutter gets removed here. But for the drawer that was added, this in the drawer, there was one more panel. So you can simply go into the construction of this and you can see that the front is on. So you can turn it off also. So you can see that the wicker basket is now added here. Drawer is also added here. If you want to change anything in that drawer also, you can do it. And top, you want to add a shutter. So you add a partition, go add partition here. And in the shutter, you can simply select the shutter and you can make it, let's say, a top lift, a single lift up. So you can see it's a single lift up now. So in this way, you can basically make the entire thing and then you can save it also. Let's say I'm saving it. So you have saved it and everything gets saved. The next time when you use it, this will be how it is. You can customize the size, everything of this. If you want to customize the construction of it, how it's getting constructed, the shelf reveal, everything is something you can customize accordingly and create your entire catalog. So with this, we would like to close the webinar from our side, and we would like to take questions from you people because there has been a lot of information that we have given. I'm sure you guys have some questions that we can take up at this stage. So we have Neha, whose hand is already up. Neha?
मुझे ना एक्चुअली एक्सेसरीज को ऐड करना और जैसे हमारे चैनल्स कई बार दिखाने होते हैं हमें, जैसे वो कैसे दिखा सकते हैं? चैनल्स हो गए, ड्रॉर्स के अंदर जो चैनल दिखते हैं बेसिकली।
तो ये आपका ड्रॉयर हो गया।
हाँ, साइड में चैनल्स अगर मुझे रन करते हुए दिखाने हो तो कैसे होगा?
तो जैसे यहाँ पे आई एम नॉट श्योर कि हमने इसमें चैनल्स डाल रखे हैं कि नहीं अभी, बट आई थिंक डाल रखे। ओके, सो ड्रॉयर जब आप सिलेक्ट करेंगे तो ड्रॉयर टैब में आपके कस्टमाइज ऑप्शन में चैनल्स भी आता है। तो यहाँ पे आप जब चैनल ऐड करेंगे तो यहाँ से आप सिलेक्ट कर सकते हैं जो भी चैनल आपको यूज करना है, और फिर वो चैनल लग जाएगा आपका यहाँ पे। इसका आप डिफाइन कर सकते हैं, और इस पे आप प्राइसिंग डालेंगे तो वो चैनल भी प्राइसिंग में आएगा।
ओके।
राइट। और
अगर मुझे शटर में हिंजेस दिखाने हो?
हिंजेस आप दिखा नहीं सकते, हिंज एक हार्डवेयर है। आप अगर हिंज ऐड करते हैं, जैसे अगर आप
जैसे
कैबिनेट,
मुझे क्लाइंट को समझाने के लिए दैट इज सॉफ्ट क्लोज एंड दैट इज मैनुअल, मतलब हार्ड वन, हाउ कैन आई डिफरेंशिएट?
नहीं वो आप मतलब सॉफ्टवेयर तो वैसे सेम तरीके से ही खोलेगा ना। तो लाइक सॉफ्ट क्लोज और नॉर्मल चैनल्स जो होते हैं वो तो आपको फिजिकली ही उनको डिफरेंस दिखाना पड़ेगा। बट अगर आपको दिखाना है कि कहाँ पे सॉफ्ट क्लोज लगा है, कहाँ पे नॉर्मल लगा है, तो आप उस एरिया में लगाएंगे, और जब आप प्राइसिंग कोटेशन निकालेंगे उसमें, तो वो चैनल्स जो लगे हैं वो आपको डिफाइन होंगे ही। राइट। आप चाहे तो अपने प्रेजेंटेशन में भी लिख सकते हैं उसको।
ओके मैम, थैंक यू।
राइट। आपने अप्लायंसेस का भी पूछा था, बट आई थिंक वी हैड ऑलरेडी क्लैरिफाइड दैट।
यस यस।
राइट। ठीक है। और जो आप बोले ना हिंज लगाने का, हिंज लगाना चाहते हैं तो आप कैबिनेट में यहाँ पे हार्डवेयर ऑप्शन आता है। आप जितना भी हिंज चैनल जो भी लगाना चाहते हैं, कनेक्टर सेट्स जो भी है आपका, हिंज डबल मिनी फिक्स, यहाँ पे अपने कैटलॉग अपलोड करेंगे तो आप जितने भी, लेट्स से मैं हिंज लगा रही हूँ इसमें, तो हिंज लग जाएगा, और यहाँ पे जितना भी हिंज लगाना है आपको वहां पे आप नंबर कर सकते हैं।
जैसे 0 क्रैंक के आते हैं और डिफरेंट ही आते हैं वैसे तो।
हाँ, जो भी लगाना हो अपने कैटलॉग में आप अपलोड करके आप ऐड करते जा सकते हैं।
ठीक है,
राइट।
थैंक यू।
We'll take up the next question, which is Shanu Sharma.
हेलो।
Hi.
यस मैम। मैम जैसे कैबिनेट के बैक साइड में कॉलम आ रहा है तो उसमें एल कट कैसे हो पाएगा?
जो आपका एल कट है, क्या वो आपके फैक्ट्री में मैन्युफैक्चर होके आता है?
नहीं, मैं फैक्ट्री मैन्युफैक्चर ही हूँ।
नहीं नहीं, मैं बोल रही हूँ अगर आप कोई साइट पे आपका एल कट होता है, राइट, तो
जी।
कैबिनेट तो आपका पूरा पूरा कंस्ट्रक्शन होकर आता है, राइट, तो साइट
हम्म।
पे होता है।
मैं डिजाइन में शो करना चाह रहा हूँ कि एल कट कैसे होगा।
नहीं, हम फैक्ट्री से भी कट करके ही भेजते हैं।
फैक्ट्री से आप कैसे कट कर सकते हो उसको, क्योंकि फैक्ट्री में तो अगर आप कट कर देंगे तो साइज के हिसाब से तो उसमें
हाँ,
फिटिंग।
जो मेजरमेंट साइज, जैसे कॉलम है, कॉलम की विड्थ मान लो 180 है, डेप्थ 100 है, तो वो उस हिसाब से हम कैबिनेट को भी कट करके भेजते हैं।
यूजुअल मार्केट प्रैक्टिस तो मतलब थोड़ा शायद डिफरेंट हो, बट हम ये सपोर्ट नहीं करते। बेसिकली हम ऐसे कस्टमाइजेशन नहीं सपोर्ट करते, क्योंकि वो साइट स्पेसिफिक होता है। आपके 3D में वो फिर भी दिखेगा। जैसे अगर मैंने ये कॉलम डाला है यहाँ पे, और अगर आप यहाँ पे फर्निश करेंगे, कोई भी कैबिनेट डाल रहे हैं।
आप ऑल कैबिनेट ओपन यूनिट लीजिए एक बार। ऑल कैबिनेट ओपन।
हाँ, तो ओपन यूनिट पे आप बोल रहे हैं, ओपन यूनिट।
अब इसको इंसर्ट मतलब देख रहे हैं तो कॉलम आ रहा है।
हाँ, तो कॉलम तो इसमें आ रहा है बेसिकली, क्योंकि आपका यहाँ पे कॉलम है, सो ये दिख रहा है। वी अंडरस्टैंड दैट, बट
जोड़ेंगे।
इसको क्या कस्टमर को मुझे दिखाना है या मुझे कंस्ट्रक्शन करना फैक्ट्री में फ्लोर पे, तो मेरा क्या मतलब इससे सारा चीज होके जा रहा था, ये अलकट होके नहीं आ पा रहा है मशीन पे, वो दिक्कत आती है क्योंकि
We
पूरे डायमेंशन हम आपके सॉफ्टवेयर से उठाते हैं।
एक्चुअली ये एक रिक्वेस्ट है जो किसी लोगों ने हमसे डिस्कस किया है।
जी।
हमारी प्रोडक्ट टीम को ये फीडबैक ऑलरेडी गया है फ्रॉम द कस्टमर सर्विस एग्जीक्यूटिव्स, फीडबैक गया है, बट द थिंग इज वी आल्सो हैव टू डू अ लिटिल मार्केट रिसर्च कि वो कितने लोगों की रिक्वायरमेंट है, उसके बेसिस पे यू माइट सी समथिंग कमिंग अप इन द फ्यूचर, बट प्लीज बी एबल टू रिजॉल्व योर क्वेरी इमीडिएटली।
ओके मैम, थैंक यू।
Before we take the next question, somebody, Indrajit had said that it doesn't work about built-in appliances. May I understand what it is you're referring to?
Hello,
Hi.
hello, ma'am.
Yeah, hi.
Hello. Can you add the custom panel in base unit full only single custom panel? You can remove the countertop and then use the custom panel.
What is the purpose?
Only one single panel. You can remove the single custom panel, right? How can you add the hello?
Hello, ma'am, can you repeat yourself? Like, what do you mean by custom panel? Matlab, what are you trying to achieve?
Yeah, full base unit, right? Single custom panels is there, right? How can you use remove the custom panel and countertop? How can you use a single panel, custom panel?
You are talking about if I remove the countertop, this one you
Yes,
want
yes.
single panel.
Custom panel.
Okay, this is a one panel you want, right?
Yes, ma'am.
This is rails. So if you select it, if you go into construction of it, if you go
Yes.
into carcass here, you can see that here on rail top, the top is marked as half rail. If you mark it as
Yes,
full, then it will become full.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, you have to go to cabinet, construction, carcass, rail option.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Then I was trying to take the question from Mr. Indrajit, who said it does not work about built-in appliances in the text you had written. Okay, I don't think we have him anymore. So how to change any vertical shutter design to horizontal in drawers? What exactly does this mean, Aurea Kitchen? Okay, we will start the queue itself. Mr. Tushar had raised his hand.
Yes, hi ma'am. I just want to know, you just talk about the catalogs. You can add this kind of a catalog we can add. So
Yeah.
how to add the catalogs? Like if I have an Hetic brand catalog, so how can I add the particular catalog?
Hetic, what do you want to add?
Like fixtures or like tandem drawers, everything.
So if you go into your admin portal, you
Mhm.
have the catalog option.
Yes.
Here you have the hardware section.
Mhm.
Here it's all segregated based on this.
So
Like
if I go to the Hetic hinges, so did I get that hinges? What kind of a Hetic you have already included in the particular catalog?
if you, let's say I go to add from warehouse, right?
Uh-huh.
Here we have the Hetic store also.
Mm-hmm.
And Hetic store, we have a lot of fittings and all. Hetic connector fittings we have drawer channels, we have hinges, everything that is possible for us to create, we have created here. And you
Okay.
can add it to your, you can simply select it and add it. And once you apply it, it will be part of your catalog.
Okay. And what if we don't have any particular brand catalog, how
Then
can we export that?
go to hardware and you
Uh-huh.
can select the category that you want to add it in. Let's say you're trying to add a hinge. You can simply go to hinge and
Mm-hmm.
here you can, like how I have a hinge here, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
can add a group here. I can add a, like how, like I'll add a group, let's say, okay, I'll add a subcategory here. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll just write test here. So I'll submit it. So you can see here there is one more category that will open here.
Yes.
So you can go into this, you can add a group here. Let's say again I'm putting test here.
Mm-hmm.
You can make one section. Herein you can add SKUs. So you can name whatever SKU you want. You can add a display image for the same. You can upload the 3D model of it if you want. If you don't add a
So-
3D model, then it, like for hardware, it is not required to add a 3D model. Okay, you can simply name the item here, and you can upload a display image with all the specifications of it here, and brand you can mark it as hetic and submit it. Then every time when you open, right?
And
uh,
what kind of 3D models we can upload here, like the
this is a
extensions?
hardware, so you don't need to upload a 3D model. If
If
you
I
have,
if I need to upload like a basket or anything, so what kind of 3D extensions you are supporting?
it has to be like a, you can see the upload configuration also, obj.blend.jlb. You can
Okay.
upload any of these formats.
So these formats I can upload. If I have any kind of 3D models in this format, I can upload in the our particular models, right?
You can, like for accessories and all, if you add it, it'll start showing in your 3D itself. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I add, like let's say in this, if inside this, if I add an accessory, then
Mm-hmm.
it starts showing, like you can see in shutter system, add basket. So for the sake of discussion, I'm adding a wicker basket here. Okay,
Yes.
you can see that the wicker basket actually gets added as per size and everything, all that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you add hardware, hardwares we don't show it because the model becomes too heavy
Okay.
and delays loading time. Hardwares will not be shown; it will be shown in your outputs, in your pricing, etc. But accessories and all, because those are important to show to your design to your client, probably we show it.
Okay. So like a tandem drawers or anything like wicker basket or anything, we can add with the 3D models.
You can. You simply have to go into that particular section and add a category of it. Like you can, we are also coming up with a catalog management course on our certification program. If you want to understand more in detail, you can do the catalog certification course also, which will be launched next week.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll understand more about how to do this catalog management.
Okay, and just one last question. Like we have the on the countertop, we if we need some like skirting above that countertop, right? Like front skirting over there. So on that countertop, we can do that.
So let's say I'll just turn the countertop on here. So here you can create countertop drop at the back. You can turn it on,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can shift it up basically by
Okay.
100 mm. So you can see that the countertop gets added like
Okay.
this.
Okay. So that I need to go like from front from back. It's okay. Yep. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
If you by default use this, no, you can make it like you can make this countertops like this in your seller portal also. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to do it every time then
Okay.
and save
Yeah.
it because it's basically if you do it every time like that only.
Okay. Sure. Thank you, ma'am.
No problem. Thank you. Um, Upal Kitchens.
यस मैम। मैम इसमें जो शटर्स बनाते हैं, एक तो मैं इसमें प्रॉब्लम है कि एल्युमिनियम स्ट्रिप्स वाले जो एल्युमिनियम शटर्स बनते हैं विद माइका एक्रेलिक वगैरह लगकर, इसमें चारों साइड स्ट्रिप्स आती हैं, वो नहीं आ पाती प्रॉपर्ली शटर्स के।
वो क्या सॉरी?
जैसे एल्युमिनियम शटर्स बनते हैं एल्युमिनियम किचन्स में,
हाँ
तो उसके चारों एजेस पे स्ट्रिप रहती है।
हाँ रहती है।
वो मिड में हम जैसे कोई भी एक्रेलिक या कुछ माइका पेस्ट करते हैं, उस साइड में एजेस दिखते रहते हैं, वो नहीं आते प्रॉपर से।
कहाँ पे नहीं आते?
जैसे आपने उधर माइक्रो ओवन वाला यूनिट ओपन करना है जिसमें आप कर रहे थे अभी,
हाँ
जैसे ये शटर है ऊपर वाला या नीचे वाला, इसमें हम चारों ओर पे एजेस दिखाना चाहते हैं एल्युमिनियम वाले।
तो ठीक है, अगर आप चाहते हैं उसको तो आप इसका जो शटर है शटर प्रोफाइल में आप हैंडल प्रोफाइल में डाल सकते हैं। हैंडल प्रोफाइल में एक डाल दो और नॉन हैंडल प्रोफाइल में भी डाल दो। ऐसे ऐसे आ जाएगा ना आपका।
हाँ यही चीज है।
हाँ, तो ये बेसिकली आप शटर सिलेक्ट करेंगे, तो आप शटर सिस्टम में जाएंगे, कंस्ट्रक्शन में जाएंगे, तो यहाँ पे शटर प्रोफाइल्स भी एक आता है। तो
ओके
आप प्रोफाइल सिलेक्ट करेंगे, तो जिस भी तरीके के प्रोफाइल सिलेक्ट करेंगे, ऐसे अगर आप उसमें हैंडल और नॉन हैंडल पार्ट में आप अलग अलग सिलेक्ट कर सकते हैं। जैसे ये हैंडल वाला पार्ट है ना, तो
ठीक
ये
है मैम।
इस तरह से खुलेगा, तो वहां पे अगर अलग डालना है तो अलग डाल सकते हैं, यहाँ पे अगर अलग डालना है तो अलग डाल सकते हैं। सेम डालना है
ठीक है।
तो select कर लीजिएगा।
और सेम सेम शटर को हैंडल लेस बनाना, जैसे गोला प्रोफाइल या जे प्रोफाइल में बनाते हैं, ये अपर सेक्शन वाले में वो भी थोड़ा इश्यूज है।
तो गोला डालने में तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, आप सिलेक्ट करते हैं शटर, और
हाँ,
अगर आप यहाँ पे हैंडल हैंडल जाता है, आप हैंडल करते हैं, तो यहाँ पे
इसमें
आप
बेस वाले में होता है मैम, अपर सेक्शन में दिक्कत आता है, जैसे मिड में डालना है, जैसे माइक्रो ये अपन के ऊपर वाला शटर है, इसी में डालना है।
तो आप बोलो वॉल यूनिट्स जैसे
हाँ जैसे
कोई भी वॉल यूनिट ले लेते हैं, ये वाला वॉल यूनिट लेते हैं। अगर आप इस वाले वॉल यूनिट में शटर सिस्टम में जाके आप हैंडल चेंज कर रहे हो,
मैम इसमें तो हो जाएगा, जो डबल चलते हैं, एक नीचे वाला अलग शटर होता है, अलग ऊपर वाला अलग होता है वहां पे।
ओके, तो आप बोल रहे हो कि
लिफ्ट अप सेक्शन में जो अलग अलग शटर ओपन होंगे।
डबल लिफ्ट अप चाहिए आपको।
हाँ इसमें ऊपर वाला अलग ओपन होगा, इसमें अलग डालना है, और इसमें नीचे वाले में अलग।
तो अभी प्रॉब्लम क्या है?
हाँ ये जैसे ये तो फोल्ड वाला आ गया ना, इसमें अलग अलग शटर्स ओपन करने, ऊपर वाला अलग से ओपन करना, नीचे वाला अलग से।
ऊपर वाला तो ये तो मतलब आपका वो ही अलग हो गया ना, कि अगर आप शटर सिस्टम ले रहे हो, आपको तो शटर ही रिमूव करना पड़ेगा। फिर उसके बाद इस पार्टीशन में आप एक शटर डाल दो, इस पार्टीशन दूसरा शटर डाल दो, आप इस पार्टीशन के अंदर आप दूसरा शटर डाल दो, फिर इन दोनों को आप जो है इसका हैंडल चेंज कर दो, आप गोला बना दो, उसको वॉल यूनिट पे बना दो। तो आप देख लो ये एक खुल रहा है, और ये
उसमें देख ग्रूव आ नहीं ना, हाथ कैसे जैसे प्रैक्टिकली ग्राउंड पे वर्क करेंगे हाथ।
इसमें भी चेंज कर सकते हैं ना। तो दोनों में आ रहा है।
नहीं ओपन करने पे आ रहा है, जब बंद करते हैं तब उसमें ग्रूव नहीं है ना, जब प्रैक्टिकली जैसे ग्राउंड पे हम उसे ओपन करेंगे कैसे करेंगे।
ये वाला शटर का रिडक्शन बढ़ा दीजिए ना, तो ये वाला जो शटर है, इस वाले पैनल का बेसिकली आप
जी
जो है, इस पैनल में आप एक एक्सटेंशन पैरामीटर होता है, तो उसमें आप जैसे बॉटम से आप ये कर सकते हो कि कितना होता होगा, -20 होता होगा।
हाँ मिनिमम इतना ही होगा, 18 के तो।
जितना भी आपको चाहिए आप ऐसे रिड्यूस कर दोगे तो वो आ जाएगा।
और प्रोफाइल तो नीचे रह गया ना, छोटा हो गया।
क्योंकि हमने ज्यादा डाला ना, आपने 20 थोड़ा ज्यादा हो गया। ये सब आप बेसिकली आपको ये एक ही बार करना है, ऐसा नहीं बार बार करना है। इसका एक कैबिनेट बना के रख देना है, और वो जहां भी यूज करना हो यूज करते रहना है। अब जैसे 20 थोड़ा ज्यादा ही हो गया, तो ये साइज सही है ना।
जी जी मैम।
तो ऐसे करके बनाना है आपको,
ठीक है मैम।
कि एक बार बना के आप रख सकते हैं।
ठीक।
ओके,
एक
रम्या।
ग्लास शेल्फ से नहीं आती उसमें, क्रोकरी यूनिट में।
सॉरी,
जो क्रॉकरी यूनिट बनाते हैं ना उसमें वुडन शेल्फ्स आती हैं, जब ग्लास की चेंज करते हैं ना ग्लास शेल्फ ऐड नहीं होती उसकी।
ग्लास शेल्फ नहीं आ रही होती,
हाँ, जैसे क्रॉकरी यूनिट बनाते हैं उसके अंदर मिडिल वाला शेल्फ है, वो
वो
ग्लास
वाला
शेल्फ नहीं होता।
ग्लास चाहिए।
हाँ जी मैम।
तो इस पैनल का आप जाके इस पैनल का आप मटेरियल चेंज कर सकते हो। आप उसको सेल्फ कर दो मटेरियल, आपको अलग से मटेरियल चाहिए ना, तो इस वाले मटेरियल को आप चेंज कर सकते हैं कि सेकंड इस पैनल को आप बेसिकली उसका जो कोर मटेरियल है ना वो ग्लास डालना होता है। तो अगर पार्टीशन है सपोज, इसमें एक शेल्फ डाला हमने और इस शेल्फ को मटेरियल सेल्फ करेंगे, सॉरी शायद मैंने इसमें कुछ रूल लगाया होगा, बट अगर आप इस पैनल के कोर मटेरियल में जाएंगे ना, कोर मटेरियल में आपको एक जैसे WWR प्लाई मिल रहा है ना, एक आपको वो भी मिलेगा, एक आपको ऑप्शन मिलेगा कि ये डालने के लिए ग्लास प्लाई, वो सिलेक्ट कीजिएगा, आपका प्लाई बन जाएगा इसमें।
ठीक है।
ठीक है, ओके। नेहा,
Yes. Hello.
हेलो, हाय नेहा, यू हैड अ क्वेश्चन।
या सेम ग्लास शेल्फ का कि कुछ शटर मुझे ग्लास के दिखाने हो तो वो कैसे पॉसिबल है?
हाँ वही मैंने
एक
बोला,
कैबिनेट चल रही है, ऊपर मेरा वुडन है, नीचे वुडन है और बीच का पार्ट मुझे ग्लास का दिखाना है। हाउ कैन आई डू दैट?
बेसिकली आपको पैनल में सिलेक्ट करना है, पैनल में जाना है और यहाँ पे जो मटेरियल ऑप्शन में यहाँ पे आपको कोर मटेरियल चेंज कर देना है ग्लास की। मेरे उसमें रूल लगा है तो आई हैव नॉट एबल टू डू इट राइट नाउ, बट यहाँ पे उस पैनल का मटेरियल जो होता है ना वो सिलेक्ट चेंज कर देना होता है कोर मटेरियल में।
ओके,
ठीक है,
ठीक है, ठीक है। आई विल ट्राई एंड
श्योर, प्लीज डू।
डू।
गिरीश, Anushka and Girish will be the last questions that we'll be taking today. Girish, Anushka,
हाँ मैम, वो जो शटर है ना आपने दिए ग्लास शटर का, उसमें नहीं के वो एक्सटर्नल फिनिश शटर है ना, उसमें जाके आप ग्लास में जाके भी आप उसको ग्लास शटर कर सकते हैं और सेल्फ कर सकते हैं। सेल्फ में जाके
हाँ
वो नीचे एक्सटर्नल फिनिश लिखा हुआ है उसके नीचे।
हाँ
हाँ, उसमें ग्लास लेनी है, ग्लास में प्लेन ग्लास लेना है, वो इधर और उसके नीचे और एक और चेंजेस है।
कौन से?
सेल्फ सिलेक्ट करे, पैनल में चाहिए।
हाँ आप बोलो इंटरनल भी चेंज कर दो ना उसका।
हाँ, मटेरियल में ही है मैम। और ये जो इंटरनल फिनिशिंग है उसमें भी आपको ग्लास ही करना है, प्लेन ग्लास, तो वो हो जाएगा।
वाह अनुष्का, थैंक यू सो मच।
हाँ
Core material से I think this is something that we have changed because I think in the last launch जो हमने किया था we have changed probably this. So Anushka today has educated us about something that is awesome. Thank you so much Anushka. But
Thank you.
the other two people probably can check on this कि आपको internal external finish दोनों change कर देंगे तो class select कर लेंगे तो वो class दिखेगा।
Yeah, Rishi. Hello.
Yeah, hi Girish.
Yeah, hi. Rishi, I want to make a groove on top of the luggage rack. I want to insert the SS rod. How can we make the groove? This is a production line.
For manufacturing, right?
Yeah.
So manufacturing is something that you will have to you'll have to check. You'll have to check with your CSM directly, because the thing is manufacturing comes with a lot of back-end things. We would not be able to give a very simple answer to this right away, because we have to understand what is the complete construction and then give a solution accordingly.
Can we insert any image also for the SS rod on top of the unit?
I'm sorry.
If suppose we want to show to the client
Huh?
the things we are putting on the top of the luggage rack, any option is there to put the SS strip on the top to show the client?
Luggage rack, as in what exactly are you trying to? Do you have any image or something that I can see?
It's just simple. When we visiting the hotel, there the one luggage rack is there, where they have somewhere put up the marble, somewhere they had put the SS strip on the top of the unit.
Okay,
Have
okay.
you seen anywhere?
I have seen it, but this can be a 3D also, right? Because manufacturing wise, this is a SS, right? We cannot,
Yeah.
we don't have details for SS manufacturing. We can do only woodwork.
This
We
is
don't.
not the SS manufacturing. This is only just we want a groove only, or we want to show that the SS is on the top of the unit. Or suppose we want a one groove for ventilation. One side 18 mm side is there. We want through and through groove. How can we make this groove?
To make this groove as such, you will have to uh, put some cam details where you have to have a hardware, and in that hardware you'll have to put we configure it on the back end of that hardware, that we put a depth of the hardware exactly of how much drilling, and we put the radius of the drilling and all that. So all that information, if you put inside the hardware, that you're like, basically you can add it as a hardware. These rods that you are installing, you can add it as a hardware, and then put the information of the drill in the way that how much radius and how much depth to put for it, and that should ideally work. But this is something that you will have to test out with your CSM accordingly, and then come to a solution.
Okay, suppose in the shutter, suppose we go for the simple things. If shutter is there, 450 by 1000, we want a cutout in the middle of the shutter, say 100 by 100. It is possible?
Currently, this is something that our team is working on.
Okay.
And you can check it out accordingly, because manufacturing, having a cutout is something we can support. But again, it depends on what type of cutout, whether what shape of the cutout, etc. It is very much dependent on that.
The manufacturer is a different thing. There's a cam file they will generate later on, but we want to show the cutout in 3D.
In 3D, you can definitely check, add the cutout accordingly, but this is something that
How can we add the cutout on this panel? Can you show me, please?
That's the thing, sir. This is a manufacturing thing. We would need considerable time to actually show you something like this, because I'll have to have that added as a hardware and configured it accordingly. I don't have the exact hardware that you are requesting for right now, because slightly a high-end question. So if you check once, then we would need to have a hardware where it is configured like that, and then add it, then it will come. I really request you. Who's your CSM?
It's Suman.
Suman, then Suman is the one who had actually taken up this product, had helped product develop this particular feature. So if you check with her once, she'll be able to exactly show you on this.
Okay, okay, Rishi. Thank you.
She's the one who's currently in discussion accordingly. So just check once with her, and if this particular feature is now live on our software, she's the one who's able to help you immediately on that.
Okay, Rishi.
Well, I'm so sorry I could not help you immediately, but please check with Suman. She'll be able to help
Okay, I will talk to Suman.
you. Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this session. Extremely sorry that we pushed it beyond the expected time, but we will see you again next week with a new topic. Thank you.
Bye.